It finally happened. Judge Caldwell ran out of patience, and the Marshals did not wait. What you're about to see has never happened before. A federal judge pushed too far, ordering the immediate removal of a defendant from his courtroom. No warnings, no second chances. The Marshals moved in before he even finished speaking. And then the shocker no one saw coming. Bail denied on the spot. This was not a show. This was not someone trying to look tough. This was a federal judge standing in front of cameras in a packed courtroom and saying that enough is enough. When a sitting judge looks at armed federal officers and says, "Remove him now," you know something very serious just happened. Here is exactly what happened and why everyone is talking about it. So, what caused this extraordinary moment? In his courtroom, on what was supposed to be a normal pretrial hearing, Judge Caldwell saw something that broke his well-known patience. A patience that had held strong through decades on the federal bench. This is not just another courtroom outburst caught on camera. This is a federal judge making a careful, planned choice to use all of his power in the moment, with the entire legal world watching. The defendant, who had already pushed the limits in earlier court appearances, crossed a line that Judge Caldwell made clear would never be crossed again. What happened in those explosive 90 seconds is now being studied by legal experts all across the country. Former prosecutors are calling it a perfect example of a judge using his authority. Defense attorneys are calling it terrifying, and I have the courtroom accounts, the legal filings, and expert analysis right here. But here is the thing. What caused the removal is only part of the story. The bail denial that came after, that is where this gets truly unlike anything we have seen before. Because when a federal judge takes away your freedom in the middle of a hearing with marshals already standing beside you, your entire legal plan just fell apart. Let me show you exactly what they are trying to spin. Here's what actually happened inside that courtroom, the moment everyone clicked to see. The hearing started at 10:17 a.m. According to people watching in the courtroom, the defendant walked in with what witnesses described as clear disrespect, refusing to look at the judge, whispering loudly to his legal team, and at one point appearing to laugh during official court announcements. This is it. This is the moment that changed everything. Judge Caldwell, after taking care of early matters, turned to the issue of whether the defendant had been following the rules set before the trial. That is when the defendant interrupted directly, cutting off the judge in the middle of his sentence. According to reporters who were present, the defendant said, "This court has no authority over me. I do not recognize this proceeding." Judge Caldwell paused. The courtroom went silent. He gave the defendant one chance, just one. He said calmly, "You'll behave with respect for this court, or there will be immediate consequences." The defendant's response? He reportedly turned to the people watching and made a dismissive gesture toward the judge's bench. That was the trigger. Judge Caldwell's voice, according to multiple witnesses, changed instantly, not louder, but colder. He said, "Marshals, remove this individual from my courtroom immediately. We are done." Two U.S. Marshals standing near the side entrance moved without hesitation. The defendant barely had time to react before he was physically walked out toward the holding area. But here is the kicker. Judge Caldwell was not finished. As the Marshals moved in, the judge continued, "Let the record show that the defendant has on purpose disrespected this court's authority. Based on this behavior, combined with recorded rule-breaking of pretrial release conditions, the court has taken away bail effective immediately." Taking away bail in real time while the defendant was being physically removed. Legal experts who reviewed the transcript pointed out that this was not done on impulse. It was carefully planned. Judge Caldwell listed specific violations, missed check-ins with pretrial services, alleged contact with witnesses despite a no-contact order, and social media posts that appeared to threaten court officers. The defendant had reportedly missed 3 scheduled check-ins over the previous month. Court documents show that pretrial services had filed 2 formal notices of rule-breaking, both of which had been brought up in earlier hearings with warnings. Those warnings ended the moment the defendant interrupted the judge. The bail removal order filed within the hour contained language rarely seen in federal court cases. Judge Caldwell wrote, "The defendant has shown a clear unwillingness to follow the conditions of release and has shown disrespect for the court process itself. Allowing him to remain free poses an unacceptable risk to the fairness of these proceedings." And it gets worse. According to sources familiar with the case, investigators had been building a case to take away bail for weeks. The defendant's social media activity, despite being ordered to limit public statements about the case, included posts that prosecutors argued were meant to scare witnesses. One post, according to court filings, mentioned people believed to be helping the government by using their initials, with language the government described as thinly hidden threats. Judge Caldwell, in his written order, addressed this directly. The defendant's public posts show not just poor judgment, but a carefully planned effort to get in the way of justice. Former federal prosecutor Marcus Webb told legal observers that this level of documentation suggests the judge had been waiting for the right moment. This was not a reaction. The bail removal order was already ready. The defendant's courtroom behavior simply gave the final reason needed. The defendant is now being held without bail while waiting for trial, a situation that in federal court is extremely hard to reverse. His legal team has 24 hours to file an emergency appeal. Hit that subscribe button right now, because what happens next in this case could change the way federal judges handle defendants who refuse to listen all across the country. I am covering every update as it happens, and you will want to be here for all of it. Now, you have seen what happened, but here's how we got here, and it makes Judge Caldwell's decision even more understandable. This confrontation did not come out of nowhere. Tensions have been building for months, driven by the defendant's pattern of pushing limits, testing the judge's patience, and treating court hearings like a stage instead of a legal forum. Everything changed during a hearing 3 months ago when the defendant first challenged Judge Caldwell's authority in public. According to court records from that earlier hearing, the defendant questioned whether the judge had the legal power to set any pretrial rules at all, a claim with no legal basis that the judge dismissed but noted for the record. At that time, Judge Caldwell said, "This court's patience should not be mistaken for weakness. I'm giving you extra room. That room can be taken away." The defendant apparently took that warning as an empty threat. Over the following weeks, pretrial services recorded a pattern of small rule breaking. The defendant would check in late, sometimes by hours, sometimes by days. He would give incomplete information about where he was. He would turn in forms with missing signatures. Each violation on its own might seem small, but federal judges notice patterns. At a hearing 6 weeks before the explosive removal, Judge Caldwell addressed these violations directly. He said, according to the transcript, "I am putting you on formal notice. One more recorded violation, and I will consider a motion to take away your bail." The defendant's attorney promised the court that he would do better. He did not. 2 weeks later, pretrial services flagged the social media posts. The posts, while not directly threatening, talked about the case in ways that came close to and arguably crossed the court order to stay quiet. When prosecutors filed a formal motion to take away bail, they included screenshots, timestamps, and expert analysis arguing that the posts were designed to scare witnesses. The hearing where the Marshals moved in was set up specifically to deal with that motion. Judge Caldwell had already looked over the evidence. He had already talked with court security. The Marshals were placed in the room specifically because the judge expected the possibility of a confrontation. What the defendant did not realize, what his legal team apparently failed to make clear, is that he was walking into a courtroom where every possible situation had already been prepared for. When he interrupted the judge, he was not testing an unprepared judge. He was setting off a response that had been planned for exactly this moment.